Israeli spies, at least some of the time, like literally Israeli spies, are writing American news or writing U.S. news. And it gets basically no coverage. There's no discussion of it. Alan McLeod over at Mint Press says 1 year after October 7th attacks, Netanyahu is on a winning streak. That's a quote. That was the title of an Axios article describing the Israeli prime minister riding on the unbeatable waves of triumph. So Axios was talking about how awesome Netanyahu was doing. These stunning military successes, its author Barak Ravid notes, include the bombing of Yemen, the assassination of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, and the pager attack across Lebanon, which was, of course, a terrorist attack, but that's not in the Axios article. The same author recently went viral for an article that claimed that Israeli attacks against Hezbollah are not intended to lead to war, but are an attempt to reach de-escalation through escalation. What was that? I do not think that word means what you think it means. But what almost everybody missed is that Barak Ravid is an Israeli spy, or at least he was until very recently. Ravid is the former analyst with the Israeli spying agency Unit 8200. I've mentioned that on the show before. As recently as last year, was still a reservist with the IDF. Ravid is far from the only Israeli ex-spook working at top U.S. media outlets, working hard to manufacture Western support for his country's genocide. In April, he won the prestigious White House Press Correspondence Award. That's right. It's not just that you have former IDF, former Israeli spies working at a U.S. outlet, not revealing that they're former IDF, former Israeli spies, but they're also winning the top awards at the White House Press Correspondence. They won that award for overall excellence in White House coverage, one of the highest awards in American journalism. Judges were impressed by what they described as his deep, almost intimate levels of sourcing in the U.S. and abroad, and picked out 6 articles as exemplary pieces of journalism. Most of these stories consisted of simply printing anonymous White House or Israeli government sources, making them look good, and distancing Biden from the horrors of the Israeli attack on Palestine. As such, there was functionally no difference between these and the White House press releases. Ravid was personally presented with the award by President Biden, who embraced him like a brother. That a known former Israeli spy could hug Biden in such a manner speaks volumes about not only the intimate relationship between the United States and Israel, but about the extent to which establishment media holds power to account. Founded in 1952, Unit 8200 is the Israeli military's largest and most controversial division, responsible for covert operations, spying, surveillance, and cyber warfare since October 7, 2023. The group has been at the forefront of the world's attention. It is widely identified as the organization behind the infamous pager attack on Lebanon, which killed 9 people, injured 3,000. Several of those who were killed were children or nurses. Here's another one. Sacher Paled spent 3 years as an officer in Unit 8200, leading a team of analysts in surveillance, intelligence, and cyber warfare. She also served as a technology analyst for the Israeli intelligence service Shin Bet. In 2017, she was hired as a producer and writer by CNN and spent 3 years putting together segments for Fareed Zakaria and Christian Amanpour. Google later hired her to become their senior media specialist. Isn't it amazing? It's a big revolving door, but it's like a revolving door of like blood-covered lunatics. Like, it's just a revolving, just blood dripping down each segment of the revolving door as they all go through it. Kind of like zombie-ish blood dripping down their mouth, dripping off their hands. And it's like, come in. Yeah, we're CNN. Where were you? Oh, you just helped murder people in bed. Come on in. Oh, where were you? Oh, you have murdered people over there. Okay, come on in. Absolutely. We're the White House press corps. Oh, sure. We'll give you an award. Another Unit 8200 agent who went on to work for CNN is Tal Heinrich. Heinrich spent 3 years as a Unit 8200 agent between 2014 and 2017. She was the field and news desk producer for CNN's notorious pro-Israel Jerusalem Bureau, where she was one of the principal journalists shaping America's understanding of Operation Protective Edge, Israel's bombardment of Gaza that killed more than 2,000 people and left hundreds of thousands displaced. Heinrich later left CNN, and where did she go? She's now the spokesman for a young whippersnapper named Benjamin Netanyahu. Isn't that a great revolving door, going from Israeli spy unit 8200 to CNN to spokesperson for Netanyahu? That's an awesome revolving door right there. CNN's penchant for hiring Israeli state figures continues to this day. Tamer Michaelis, for example, currently works for the network, producing much of its Israel-Palestine content. This is despite having previously been an official IDF spokesperson in the Israeli Defense Forces. The New York Times, meanwhile, hired Anat Schwartz, who I've talked about before, an ex-Israeli Air Force intelligence officer with zero journalistic experience. Schwartz co-wrote the infamous and now discredited Screams Without Words expose, which claimed that Hamas fighters systematically sexually violated Israelis on October 7th, despite the fact they never found any evidence that they had violated Israelis on October 7th. And in fact, in later podcasts, she talked about the fact that her job for the article was to find evidence, witnesses, rape center calls, and she talked to everybody across all of Israel, every trauma person, and could not find a single one. Yeah, couldn't find a victim. And some people go, oh, well, the victims are dead. Well, but the problem is there's more than that, right? There's endless video coverage of October 7th. There's phone calls, there's texts, there's other evidence, other forensic evidence. Zero of any of it. And yet they wrote the article anyway. That shows stick-to-itiveness. They didn't find any evidence of the thing they wanted to find evidence for, but they stuck to it. And they wrote the article anyway. That's perseverance. That shows hard work. Don't give up just because there's no evidence of the thing you're saying there's evidence for. Keep going. Keep at it. That's the New York Times way. Multiple New York Times employees, including star columnist David Brooks, have had children serving in the IDF. By the way, don't use the term serving. It is a propaganda term. You don't serve in a genocidal military. You're just in a genocidal military. So they've had children in the IDF. Even as they report or offer opinions on the region, the Times never discloses these glaring conflicts of interests to its readers, that many of these writers have children that are part of the genocidal military. Nor has it disclosed that it purchased a Jerusalem house for its bureau chief that was stolen from a family of Palestinian intellectual Ghada Karmi. The family of Palestinian intellectual Ghada Karmi in 1948. And Mint Press has actually interviewed Karmi about it. Former New York Times Magazine writer and current editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, an American, dropped out of the University of Pennsylvania to volunteer as an IDF prison guard. He was so eager to be a part of genocide that he dropped out of college to go volunteer with the IDF. In his memoirs, Goldberg revealed that while in the IDF, he helped cover up the abuse of Palestinian prisoners. That's a nice thing to admit in your memoir. It's always nice to just, when you're writing a memoir, just, let people know about the things like covering up abuse of prisoners. Social media companies, too, are filled with former Unit 8200 agents. A 2022 Mint Press study found more than 99 former 8200 operatives working for Google. 99! Jesus! It's far higher than that because, as I covered that story back when it came out, it's far higher than that because 99 is the number that put it on their LinkedIn profile. Like, hey, I used to be in an Israeli spy unit. So imagine if you included the ones who aren't revealing it on LinkedIn, it's probably much higher. Both the Times and CNN have fired multiple journalists over their opposition to Israeli action. So if you stand up against genocide, you're probably getting kicked out of these places. In November, the Times' Jasmine Hughes was forced out after she signed an open letter opposing genocide in Palestine. The newspaper terminated Hossam Salam's contract the previous year after a pressure campaign from pro-Israel group Honest Reporting. They're called Honest Reporting. Thou doth protest too much. And CNN anchor Mark Lamont Hill was abruptly fired in 2018 for calling the Palestinian liberation in a speech at the UN. Hiring agents from Unit 8200 to produce American news should be as unthinkable as employing Hamas or Hezbollah fighters as reporters. That's exactly what I was thinking. Is like, can you imagine how it would go over if we found out that MSNBC or, NPR, several other reporters were former Russian military? How would that go over? If several of the reporters at the New York Times and Fox News were former Chinese military, former Iranian military. You think people would be fine with that? You think I'd go over? You think they'd win awards at the White House for their awesome press coverage? Fucking no. And let's remember that these are just the ones that were in the IDF. I'm sure if you add in all the people that just used to have Israeli citizenship, used to be connected to AIPAC, Wolf Blitzer used to be connected to other Israeli lobbying firms. If you add all those in, imagine those numbers of people that are somehow connected to the IDF, the Israeli government. Crazy conflict of interest, but doesn't even get pictured. I mean, sorry, get mentioned.